analysis indicated last week that the trough on the 4th of June potentially was of only 20-day magnitude. Okay, so let me just take you back to last week and to making trading decisions based on the 20-day and the 40-day cycle FLDs. I spent some time talking about, would you have considered making a trading decision on the basis of the 20-day FLD? Now, last week we looked at both of these charts. So I'm going to ask you again, would you have made a trading decision on the basis of the 20-day FLD? The answer to that question is, what does it mean if price crosses the 20-day FLD? Well, it means that there has been a trough of at least 20-day magnitude. At least 20-day magnitude. Am I going to make a trading decision on the basis of that happening? And you've got to be very careful here because, of course, we are expecting the trough of the 40-week cycle to occur, and we are trading the 40-day cycle. So what you would usually do is you say, I'm trading the 40-day cycle. I've got a fantastic underlying trend because I'm expecting a trough of the 40-week cycle. I'm going to look one cycle, only one cycle shorter than my trading cycle. I'm looking at the 20-day FLD. And so therefore I'm going to make a trading decision on the basis of the 20-day FLD. But there's one link in that argument that is missing, which is if price crosses that 20-day FLD, I have confidence that a 20-day trough has occurred, but remember, the trading decision that you're making is on the basis not that a 20-day cycle has occurred, but that a 40-week cycle has occurred. Do you have confidence, having seen both of these analyses, both of which are very possible, very likely, they're quite good analyses, having seen both of these analyses, can you answer the final question, which is that if I have evidence that a 20-week cycle has formed, am I confident in my analyses that 20-week cycle is also the synchronous cycle of the 40-week cycle, synchronous cycle trough of the 40-week cycle. Now, here we have an analysis that actually tells us that this trough is only of 20-day magnitude. So the answer to that final piece of the trading decision process is no. Although the 20-day cycle FLD is only one FLD shorter than my trading cycle, and usually I'd be happy to look one FLD lower, I am only going to enter this trade on the 40-day cycle on the foundation, the sort of the foundation of the whole analysis, the whole trading decision, is that the 40-week cycle trough has occurred. So therefore, I believe the answer to making trades on the basis of the 20-day FLD at present is no. There are times when you will enter a trade on the basis of the 20-day FLD, even the 10-day FLD, possibly, but very, very unlikely, the 5-day FLD. When would you make a trading decision to enter a trade on the 40-day cycle on the basis of the 10-day FLD? When, if price crosses above the 10-day FLD, you are confident that that means that a trough of the cycle that you are basing all of your trading decisions upon is true. Okay? If we get to the point in this analysis where the only possible thing that must be happening when price crosses a 10-day FLD is that the trough of the 40-week cycle has now occurred, then we can make trading decisions on the basis of that FLD. Okay, let me get to the question from Steve. Do you think the US markets are doing much the same? It seems to me that March is most likely a trough of the 20-week low since it crossed the FLDs, which the low in January didn't. Yes, Steve, I think that the US markets are doing a similar thing. Unfortunately, we don't have time because I'm already sort of over the 45 minutes that we try to keep the traded shows to. I don't have time to go through it in detail. But as you say, there is the possibility that the 20-week low in the US markets occurred in March, as they did, I believe, strongly in the Australian markets. Often when you're trading according to Hurst cyclic principles, there are two possible things that are happening. And some people find that difficult, but it isn't difficult. You just need to you just need to be very clear about it. There are two things that are happening, I believe. There are only two things that are happening in the Australian market at the moment. Let me sort of summarize them for you. Although I've got 4 charts, we can look at all 4 of them. But nevertheless, there are in fact only 2 possible things that are happening. Okay, I believe in the Australian market. These are the 2 things that are happening. The one is that the 40-week cycle trough did occur on the 4th of June. That is still possible. Nothing has happened to deny that yet. Okay, it's still possible that the 40-week cycle trough did occur on the 4th of June. So that's option number 1. Okay. Option number 2 is the option that you see presented in front of you at the moment, which is that either the 80-day cycle occurred here in middle of May, or possibly there is an option that in fact the 80-day cycle did occur with a long 40-day cycle, as we saw. So it's possible that this is the 80-day cycle here in early June. But why do I say there are only two options? Well, because in terms of making trading decisions, we want to make a trading decision on the basis that 40-week cycle trough is formed. Okay? So there are 2 options. One is that, yes, the 40-week cycle trough has formed. The other option is that, no, it hasn't formed yet. Okay? Why do I say it's not a problem keeping those 2 options in mind? Because when you're making trading decisions, and I've just been through the process quite carefully with you today, when you're making trading decisions, you choose which FLD or which VTL you are going to enter into on the basis not only of your trading cycle, but also of why you're making the trading decisions and what potential analyses are available to you. Okay, so in terms of making trading decisions, we have 2 possibilities. One is that the 40-week cycle has occurred, and the other is that it hasn't. You need to ask yourself, how likely are each one of these possibilities? Last week, I would have probably gone about 50% each way. Okay? 50% option 1, 50% option 2. This week, and I expect most of you would agree with me, I see a comment from Steve. It bothered you for some time that the possible 20-week in January doesn't obey some of Hurst's principles. Yes, exactly. And Steve, when a trough has been phased and it doesn't obey some of Hurst's principles, it is something that should bother you. It doesn't mean it's invalid, because often Hurst's principles get slightly broken one way or the other. It's not like Elliott wave theory where there's an absolute hard and fast rule. Sometimes principles do get broken. What you must do, and I mentioned it several times last week, what you must do is when a principle gets broken, such as that FLD not being crossed, you must look carefully at what are the alternatives. Okay, that's all it encourages you to do. So just to sort of wrap up this discussion and bring it into today's Austrader chat. At the moment, between these 2 analyses, I would say the odds for me have swung to about 30%. The 40-week cycle has still occurred, and about 70% no, it hasn't occurred yet. Okay? Now, on the basis of those odds, if I'm going to make a trading decision on the 40-day cycle, which FLD am I going to use? First of all, I'm not going to enter immediately on an FLD being touched, because that's an immediate action, and I don't want to take that. I want to take more cautious action. So I would only ever take a delayed action, and I might monitor and watch the 40-day FLD, take delayed action after price crosses that 40-day FLD, and enter the market the next day. But it would need to be a nice, good, clean cross, not a squeezing over the line, not a sort of a poor price cross. In fact, the 40-day FLD is already in some kind of complex price crossing situation, and let's wrap up by just taking a look at that FLD. But with the odds swinging 70% to 30%, I certainly would not be entering on the basis of a shorter FLD. Here we go. Let's plot these FLDs. There is the where is it? There is the 40-day FLD, and So you can see price just crept up above it last week, Thursday and Friday, and today in Australia it dropped down below it. So certainly I wouldn't be wanting to be taking immediate trading actions on the basis of that 40-day FLD. I'd like to point out that it's not impossible that the 40-week cycle did occur on the 4th of June. And in fact, if you monitor the FLD levels very carefully over the next week or so, there might be a potential low-risk entry because, in fact, we're not far away from that trough on the 4th of June. So I would, I'd stay attuned to it, watch it carefully because it's still not impossible, but I do believe unlikely. And as Tom says, the chart is totally confirming what you're saying. Wyckofffian consolidation, a trading range. Okay, well, it'd be interesting to talk about Wyckoff at some point. I'm always very interested in how different possibilities, different technical analysis approaches work very well hand in hand with Hurst cyclic principles, but we don't have time for it today. So that's a topic for somewhere in the future, but that's something interesting for everybody to go and do is take a look at Wyckoff, and I'll throw another name in here as a matter of interest. Take a look at Gartley patterns. There's a potential Gartley pattern forming right now. You might know that I suffer from Hurst obsessive compulsive disorder. I love Hurst, and I believe Hurst is potentially the mother of all technical analysis systems, but that doesn't mean that I close my eyes to other possible technical analysis approaches, and I believe they're very, very useful. So take a look at Wyckoff and take a look at Gartley if you have time, and Gann, of course. Gann is fantastic, although I confess I'm not very good at Gann. It was all a bit sort of above me, but Gann is definitely very, very useful. Final question from Steve: would you base the decision to use the 40-day FLD on the amount of time left in the 40-week according to this analysis, or is that reasonable for any 40-week? Yes, certainly. The decision to use any FLD for your trading decisions has to do with how much time is left on the 40-week. Basically, it all has to do with what are the analysis options, and you have to make the personal choice. You have to stake your you have to make your decisions based on your opinions and speak to other people. Speak to me, speak to other people, get involved in the forum, look at other people's opinions, but you have to find a way of looking at an analysis and saying, I think this analysis is 90% and the other analysis is only 10%. On that basis, I'm going to be aggressive. If you think an analysis is 50-50, don't be aggressive because it could go either way. Okay, it's very simple. That's how I would recommend one do it. And with that, it is time for me to wrap up today's Oz Trader Chat. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me on today's Oz Trader Chat. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And next week on Wednesday, we have a Trader Chat, particularly